was a quiet Tuesday night. The lot had filled up unexpectedly with noose officers and their vans. They were all armed to the teeth, but nobody knew what they were here for. When we approached one of them, he became quite aggressive and pushed me out of the way. Murphy looked ready to take a swing, but that wasn't a good idea for obvious reasons. He wasn't giving us anything for some reason. Maybe he recognized me. Thought I wasn't to be trusted. But the word got around that they were hitting the Lost that night. I thought this sounded like a great opportunity to recover some evidence, and I was a little offended we hadn't been invited on the raid, so we set out to meet them there, even though we hadn't been invited. The word was that the Lost had been buying meth off those Mercanti boys. This might be a good opportunity to collect. When we got there, it was a tense situation. Both sides were armed, and there was something of a standoff in progress. A few hangers-on were even out the front smoking and taunting the police, but they didn't hang around for long once things popped off. The fighting started as soon as we arrived.
Oh my God!
They were armed to the teeth and things got chaotic quickly. Just as I thought we were out of the woods, Murphy took a bullet. It didn't seem to slow him down. I had a feeling he'd taken a few lines of coke in the helicopter on the way over here. Most of the news team were down, but we rushed in anyway. There was still Lost in there that needed to be subdued, and this might be a good opportunity. One down. Two down. I saw a runner. Murphy was already onto him. He went right. The uniform could pick up the girl. It was the dealer we were after. Murphy was fast. He was running quick for a man who'd lost that much blood. I guess cocaine was useful. We cornered him a few streets over. I was in the right spot to get the takedown, and I didn't miss my opportunity. Once he was on the deck, Murphy started shooting. I had to slap him. This guy was seriously coked up. He was turning into something of a menace. Sergeant Murphy. This guy knew how to have fun. Tried to shift the blame, but I was still slightly annoyed. It had been a bloody night. Most of the Lost were dead, and at least 3 of the noose members had bit the dust during the firefight. We had survived for the most part. Murphy was in the hospital getting a blood transfusion, which hopefully would sober him up a bit. It was a few nights later when I called him down to my house, at about 2 a.m. There was something that had been on my mind that I needed to take care of. It was the Sergeant Colombo situation. He'd been talking to Internal Affairs. He'd been informing on his partner, Patrolman Herbert, who was an important resource for us. This was a huge problem because if Herbert went down, then he'd take us with him. And any investigation into what he'd been up to would inevitably include both of us. This was an issue we had to take care of. The plan was to lure Herbert and Colombo down to the canals with a fake burglary call. Herbert was in on this, and I made the call to the 000 line on the drive over there. He was the first responder. He arrived and cleared the area of onlookers. By the time we got there, they were in place. Herbert had sent a text confirming that. Before we headed over, I took Murphy over to the bar across the street. I had a contact there who was going to provide us with a burner shotgun, which would be a good weapon for a quiet kill. Something we could get rid of easily, wouldn't trace to us. We couldn't go loading him up with bullets from our service weapons. That would be stupid in this day and age. I organised to meet him at the back of the gay bar across the street. I wasn't too familiar with this place, hadn't gotten that desperate. It was called Jesus. I didn't know him that well, but he'd offered to sell me a shotgun last time when I'd met him at another bar. $200 was the asking price. I thought that was pretty reasonable. We're only going to be using it once, so why bother with something expensive? Left it on the other side of his car. I made sure to memorize the license plates as I walked past it. If everything went to plan tonight, we'd never see this guy again. Murphy gave me a look, like he wanted to take care of it right there in the parking lot. But that was ridiculous. It was across the road from my garage, and I didn't know how many of his homies he had with him.
Fucking hell!
There was a lot of people at the front of the bar. I had to tell him to come on. There'd be a time for that later. Herbert and Colombo were in position when we got there. They looked bored. Herbert looked a bit antsy. After making a plan, we went our separate ways. I was going to do the wet work. It was my idea, so that seemed fair.
We should go to the dungeon
It
crawl.
was a
All
warm
the
night,
celebs go there.
but I was sweltering in the heavy jacket. The shotgun was knocking against my ribs as I ran.
Man, these young cats
I'd never taken out a cop before. This was crossing a line. It wasn't the first line I'd crossed, but it was a big one, that was for sure. Once I'd done this, well, there were no limits after this. Murphy walked around the front of the alley to distract him and make sure that their back was facing towards me. Herbert was in on the deal. I was going to come up the alley to the side and do my work from there. All I had to do was get rid of a stoner standing at the front.
Go on,
I asked
man.
him politely to leave. It was his lucky night. He did what he was told. When the street was clear, I put on my mask. It was time to do this. There was no room for hesitation now. There was only one way out. That was to take out the person in front of me. I couldn't go to jail. That wasn't an option, not for me. I prefer to die before I did that. Anyway, I liked Vespucci PD. I didn't want this asshole screwing it up for me. I was finally getting comfortable here. I aimed for the lungs. I only needed one shot. I knew that'd do the job. He splattered pretty good and I made my run for it. It was done. Columbo was down. Murphy acted surprised. Started jittering, running around in circles, getting his phone out and calling for backup. Herbert just asked his cigarettes on Columbo's corpse. Even after Murphy told him not to, he kept doing it. I guess there was a lot of bad blood there. Another dead body. Was this the right thing to do? Only time would tell. There was just one more thing to do before we called it a night. We had to get rid of the murder weapon. The docks were as good a place as any. The shotgun sunk to the bottom of the harbour. I hoped that was the end of it, but something told me that there would be more killing to do before this was truly off my mind. A few nights later, we got a call from Herbert. He'd spotted the license plate of the vehicle of the guy that we purchased the shotgun from. This was the last loose end before we could truly call it a day. I hadn't been sleeping the last few nights. The booze hadn't helped, but I was still jittery as I arrived. It was a miserable night. I called Murphy on the way over and he met me there. Herbert told us that there were Mexican gangsters everywhere out there. This was curious. They had no reason to be on the beach at this time. Couldn't hear a party anywhere nearby. I had a bad feeling about this. But here we were. We had to at least go and see if we could find him. I hadn't gotten Murphy out of bed, so we had to do something. Security was heavy. Reason for it wasn't apparent. This guy was selling burner shotguns out the back of his used car. What was he doing with these heavies around him? Perhaps there was more to him than we'd originally thought. But the fact that he could name us at any time still remained. He knew both of our faces, and he must have heard about the murder that happened eventually. We had to get rid of him. We had to do it quietly too, considering all the security. We found him on the balcony of a house on the beach. Doing this with loud weapons wasn't an option. We'd be dead before we reached our cars. Instead, Murphy elected to take out the security quietly. He did this one by one. Murphy distracted him by walking straight in through his gate, angry. I tried to sneak into position behind him, but there weren't many options. Murphy was getting twitchy, I could tell. Eventually, he tried a clumsy tackle. I managed to get him down, but tripped over himself. Laid in with boots and knives. It was getting noisy. This was sloppy. Put my heel into his head until he stopped breathing. There was blood all over my shoes. It was still raining, but I don't think we'd been heard. He had to get out of there. That was sloppy work. Fingerprints everywhere, blood under my fingernails. Things were getting worse. I'd gone too far. I told Murphy to run.